national and regional flag is not acceptable. We should censure Mr. Cheng Chung-tai.
Mr. Chen. Thank you, President. It is quite inevitable that we have diametrically opposed views between political parties, and we see that in other local councils, in other jurisdictions, they would put a national flag in the chamber. They may be diametrically opposed in their views, but they would not do anything to desecrate their own flag, because in doing so, you're trampling upon your nation and your country, unless you don't identify with your nation or you don't identify with your country. In preparing today's speech, I looked at Catalonia in Spain. It is a place where people are seeking independence. Now, even in Catalonia, they may be fighting for democracy. They may wave the Catalonian flag, but they would stop short of insulting or desecrating the Spanish flag, and that's the national flag, because they know full well that by doing so they are in fact insulting themselves. Today, in our debate, we are discussing the Dr. Cheng Chung-tai's act of turning the flags upside down, and I think he was insulting not just himself but also the nation and everyone in Hong Kong. The council belongs to Hong Kong people. We're put here by the Hong Kong people. We're not representing a small handful of people in Hong Kong. A responsible councillor, of course, should express his view and also the views of his electorate, but he has also to be sensitive to the sensibilities of the whole of Hong Kong. Dr. Cheng merely expressed his own views. He merely sought to please those who supported him at the expense of the whole community as well as the nation. Even if Dr. Cheng acted the way he did as an act of defiance, as a matter of fact, I think he was merely playing to the gallery. If he tried to play to the gallery by resorting to desecrating the national flag, this would be really abominable, and this is not in keeping with the basic law. For an ordinary citizen, Dr. Cheng has acted in breach of his oath of office. Let's not talk about the law. If you look at his act, twice he inverted the national flags put on the table. I remember, President, you ordered him out of the chamber twice, but he defiantly acted in breach of your ruling, and this is not behavior that would be befitting a legislative member. Unfortunately, this kind of abominable act on the part of Dr. Cheng was defended by some of the members here. Mr. Raymond Chen denied that those were flags or national flags, and he described them as exhibits. Dr. Kwok Kai-ki said that the dimensions of the flags were not right for the purpose of the law, and they should be regarded as national or regional flags. I think they are trying to play down the issue. And in defense of Dr. Cheng Chung-tai, I hope that when it comes to voting, the pan-democratic members would not be embellishing the act of Dr. Cheng. I remember at the House Committee a couple of weeks back, Dr. Cheng said in defense that he wasn't desecrating the national flags. And he said that by inverting the flags, it was an SOS. And I think this is wholly ludicrous. Let's not get drawn into the underlying meaning. I think Dr. Cheng was not courageous enough to own up to what he did, and he was trying to concoct all these excuses. Now, there was Madam Deputy, you quoted a localist book by Dr. Cheng. Now, if I quote you the foreword of the book, you would get some idea about what he's got any idea of a nation and why he inverted the flags. Now, he said to the effect that Hong Kong people don't have any national soil, and we can only build a nation in Hong Kong. Now, from this forward, you get to see whether he's got the nation in his heart, and his act of turning the flags upside down, was it because he was trying to seek help from somebody else, or was he ignoring the nationhood? If members have committed any wrongdoing, or if they've said there's anything wrong, it should be fine as long as they own up to it and they have a sense of commitment. Here in this council, Six Stone, Yau Wai Ching, and Cheng Chung Tai refused to admit to their mistakes, and they were trying to concoct excuses for their mistakes. And not only is this detrimental to our image as a council, it would make people very disappointed with the council as well. I noticed that there were some secondary students who were sitting in the gallery during the course of our debate, and we have 70 members here debating on the issue. And what sort of example are we setting for the young people? Should we show the young people to be courageous and committed people, or should we show them or teach them to be recalcitrant people who wouldn't admit to their mistakes and who were desecrating the country? I think it's open to judgment. I hope that members would respond positively to my questions. I support Mr. Paul TSE's motion, object to Mr. Raymond Chen's motion.
The Honourable Eddie Chu. Thank you. Madam Deputy. First, faced with this motion moved by Mr. Raymond Chan under RoP49B bracket 2A, that no further action shall be taken on the motion moved by Mr. Paul Chair, I'd like to say I support it. Looking at the original motion by Mr. Chair, well, frankly, I feel that it is appropriate, but I hasten to add what I mean. Mr. Paul Chair has chosen to put an internal issue of LegCo here in LegCo. We have the RoP, we have Article 79 of the Basic Law. So we have this debate today. I therefore won't agree with some members who said that this debate is a waste of time. this debate gives play to the fact that the LegCo can resort to internal mechanisms to tackle issues and problems of the Council, and even issues relating to individual members, whether you support them or object to what they do. We should follow RoP and other legal provisions, and we should handle these matters within this Council. And therefore hope that Mr. Paul Chair has set an example. And I hope pro-establishment camp members will give this some thought. From the oath-taking saga to interpretation to the executive resorting to judicial review, trying to disqualify elected members, can pro-establishment members think about the dignity of this Council and the healthy setup of LegCo and do something to defend this Council? And that is to, since CY Leung is not seeking a second term, there are no political requirements anymore. Can you not ask the executive to cancel the judicial review being sought to challenge the seats of some LegCo members? Is clearly a waste of public money. You can look at the example set by Mr. Paul Chair. If you're of the view that 4 members or 6 members oaths taking is problematic, you can always invoke RoP 49B. This is clearly a way of acting that can protect the dignity of this Council. Mr. Paul Chair, after this debate, I hope you can discuss this with your colleagues. But why would I support Mr. Ray Chan's motion and not Mr. Paul Chair's motion? Actually, Mr. Andrew Leung has made many problematic decisions as the president, in my view. But on that day, when Dr. Chang Chung-tai did what he did, Mr. Andrew Leung's decision, in my view, was very appropriate. It was proportionate. Dr. Chang left his seat on that day. He tampered with the articles on other members' desks, and then Dr. Ann Chang put the articles back to their original state, and then Dr. Chang tampered with them again. And Mr. Andrew Leung was of the view that this was gross misconduct and asked him to leave. Mr. Andrew Leung did not say, "Why are you insulting or desecrating the national flag? You may be suspicious of flouting the national flag law and the regional flag law. And don't you know we can disqualify you using RoP 49B? Mr. Andrew Leung did not say that, because any reasonable man who witnessed Dr. Chang's act on that day would tackle it in the most appropriate way, like what Mr. Andrew Leung did on that day. So, all in all, Dr. Chang's act on that day was, of course, for the expression of a political message. I will come back to this in a moment. We say we want to protect the Legislative Council and protect the members' right to speak, and also to protect the right to speak of the voters who voted him in. Now, this is very important, because if we lose this right of expressing our political thoughts, then the LegCo cannot take up its duty as a representative of public opinion. And what would happen then? People who are not happy with the governance and political directions of this government, those could not be expressed through this council, and that can be dangerous. Therefore, we should follow this principle, and that LegCo members have the right to represent their voters, to make political expressions. If on that day Mr. Andrew Leung did not come to this decision, then there is no reason why today we should resort to other means to accuse Dr. Chang of involving in such serious misbehavior that he should be disqualified. This is totally disproportionate. Mr. Paul Chair's direction is correct in my view that we should discuss this within this council, but I hope members of the public will pay attention and stay alert. They should be alert about the pro-establishment camp's action, that from oath-taking to judicial review and the series of political storms, that they are making use of Dr. Chang's act in this case to make a mountain out of a molehill. Well, I should say it in another way. Maybe to the pro-establishment camp, this is already a mountain and there is no molehill. Now, what is the problem here? Because in their heart and mind, maybe in the heart and mind of Beijing, what they want to prohibit is, of course, not just the thoughts about Hong Kong independence. What does Beijing fear most? It is that in 1989, there was the massacre, and they should take up responsibility for that. On the mainland of China, they are putting the innocent into prison for political crimes. They are flouting human rights, and the pro-establishment camp is using these labels, call it independence for Hong Kong or desecrating the national flag. Now, what is the pro-establishment camp aiming at? They want to subsume all opposition to Beijing under the label of Hong Kong independence, and then would narrow to a very large extent the room and freedom of councillors and members of the public, their freedom to express their political stance. We have to stay alert about this. When I held community forums in the various districts, I always tell members of the public that we should all stay alert of the political mission of LegCo. They would look for an extreme example, and what they want to do is that all people who oppose the CCP and the inhuman violence of the PRC, they want to put a stop and stifle all that. If you adopt such a political stance, they want to stifle all that. My last point is, as I understand it, after involving in that act, Dr. Chang never did explain the motive or objective of that act. So I don't know his motive or objective, but I know in order to do something with the national flag and regional flag, well, people can have different political stance when they do so. Madam Deputy and Mr. Gary Chan, you seem to have equated the two. Now, I don't know why Dr. Chang has done that, but you seem to be saying that by doing that, that is an expression of Hong Kong independence. Here, I like to quote the 1998 court cases involving Lei Kin-yun and Ng Kong-siu when they were prosecuted for insulting the national flag. Unlike Mr. Paul Chair, I am not going to quote from the judgment of the CFA. I like you to listen to what Mr. Lei Kin-yun said at that time. This is what he said. I'd like to ask a violent autocracy like the PRC, what qualification does it have to accuse people of insulting the national flag? And the SARG, which is regressing in welfare and protecting human rights, how can you ask people to respect the regional flag? Just like the emperor's new clothes, we should respect the child. The national flag and the regional flag represent moral bankruptcy. And they represent regression of human civilization. Now, I must emphasize again, I don't know the mindset of Dr. Chang Chung-tai on that day. Actually, I very much hope that in this council, which in his new term is facing a lot of such political expressions, I think one good way of doing this is like in 1999, like what Mr. Lei Kin-yun did. He clearly and strongly stated his stance and his political stance. So various political ideas will be explained to the public. I think this is a good way to do it. I hope the Democrats or the non-establishment members can do this in the days to come. We should unite. We should be very cautious in taking every democratic step. We must not give any excuse to the pro-establishment camp to stick the label of Hong Kong independence on all anti-communist thoughts.
Mr. Martin Liu. Madam Deputy, in relation to what happened on the 19th of October when Dr. Chang Chung-tai inverted the national flag and the regional flag, at that time the President has ruled that it was misconduct and he was expelled from the chamber. Yes, I hear the word misconduct. I don't think that most people, even whether you are loyalists or not, agree with this word misconduct, because national flag represents the country and its people, and the regional flag represents the Hong Kong SAR. If you deliberately invert these flags, it is a deliberate act to humiliate and insult the country and the special administrative region. And if this motion to censure Dr. Chang is carried, then he will lose his seat, and it's very serious. The non-establishment members said that this is making a mountain out of a molehill. I think you need to decide by yourself. And in the House Committee meeting, Mr. Paul TSE requests to move this motion to censure Dr. Chang, and there was a discussion, an ample discussion, and at that time I paid attention to what Dr. Chang said. He said in his speech that at that time the president has made a ruling. He has sanctioned him by expelling him from the chamber. He did not mention anything about the ruling that it was misconduct, and he also circumvented with the propriety or otherwise of his behavior. Dr. Chang just wanted to shift the limelight and said that it was others who has elevated it unproportionally, and this is a political struggle and is exaggerated and over the top. Dr. Chang did not show a morsel of remorse, and he even tried to explain it away. And if Dr. Chang shows remorse, I will be very happy to reconsider whether to support this motion. Well, legal points related to inverting national flag and regional flag is for the investigation to be started to consider. After a member has administered oath and in a solemn chamber of the Legislative Council invert the national flag and the regional flag, we can tell very clearly whether that act is becoming of a legislator and whether it is an act that shows that you uphold the basic law and you swear allegiance to the Hong Kong SAR and the country. Dr. Chang did not explain in the House Committee, but in his Facebook, he said that he interfered with the flags, and he found what happened at that time to be quite regrettable. That's why, on behalf of Hong Kong people, he inverted the national flag and the regional flag. However, I find such behavior regrettable itself because Dr. Chang has belittled the importance of what he has done, and he even thought that such act is a political gesture to express his view. Dr. Chang repeated such humiliating acts by inverting the flags again and again. It showed that it was deliberate. It's been almost 2 months since the 19th of October. Dr. Chang still has not shown any remorse and has not tendered any apology. Dr. Chang said that he is monitored by the public. He is returned by election, and next time, if voters think that he's not performing his duties, then they would not return him again. However, under Article 79, bracket 7 of the Basic Law, that is when a legislator is censured for misbehavior or breach of oath by a vote of 2/3 of the members of the legislature present, then his seat will be disqualified. I remember about 10 years ago when I was dealing with a case, a defendant said to the court that the court cannot judge him and could not penalize him or punish him. Only God could do so. And I think this is along the same line as what Dr. Chang said. He's trying to muddle the water and to pull wool over the eyes of the public. What's more is that in the House Committee, Dr. Chang all of a sudden made a statement, and he stated a code of the U.S. saying that inverting the national flag is to draw attention and to seek help. there are different rules in different countries in relation to their national flags. Barack Obama, on an occasion, by mistake inverted the national flag of the Philippines, and he apologized, because in the Philippines, if you invert the national flag, it means that the country is at war. A legislator of the Hong Kong SAR only cited the example of the US. He conveniently neglected Annex 3 of the Basic Law, which is the resolution of in relation to the national emblem and the national flag applied to Hong Kong. Dr. Chang is a localist. He said that Hong Kong people's wish should be respected. Then how come he can conveniently neglect that such act by inverting the national flag and the regional flag is self-humiliating? And if non-loyalists continue to do something that is wrong, no matter how you slice it, then the public will doubt their integrity and their ethics and will wonder whether they should be legislators. I have no doubt that I should support this motion for this matter to be handed over to the investigation committee for following up.
Dr. Elizabeth Quat. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Not admitting one is Chinese and not recognizing the country and not observing the solemnity of the Council, one should not be qualified to become a councillor here in this Council. On the 19th of October, Dr. Cheng Chung-tai turned the national and regional flags placed on our tables upside down twice, and this is an act that would amount to disrespect for the nation and the Council. Anyone who insults the country and the Council should not be legislative members. So I don't think Mr. Raymond Chen should move any motion regarding Mr. Paul TSE's motion, and we should instead support Mr. Paul TSE's motion direct. Mr. Raymond Chen said in his speech, or he used a lot of proverbs, character proverbs, to describe this, and he's saying that we are playing this out of all proportion, taking this to the extreme, and we are exaggerating Dr. Cheng Chung-tai's behavior. Madam Deputy, I think only those who are respectful of the country would trivialize the national flag. The national flag is a symbol of dignity. It is a matter of right and wrong to insult the country, and it is a matter of significance to desecrate the national flag. This is not child play. Mr. Raymond Chen said this is a false proposition and this is a wrong accusation. I think his motion is, in fact, a false proposition and a wrongful accusation. Mr. Paul TSE's motion is reasonable, but not Mr. Chen's. Madam Deputy, if Dr. Cheng has done it, now he's done it in the Council, and he should be admitting to it. He has to bear the consequences for what he did. Mr. Eddie Chu said that he didn't know the idea of Dr. Cheng and why he did what he did. Now, if he didn't know why he did what he did, why did Mr. Chu come to his defense. Now, we didn't hear about the motive of Dr. Cheng, and that's precisely the reason why we would throw our support behind Mr. Paul TSE's motion. Let Dr. Cheng advance his arguments. But I think from Dr. Cheng's behavior in the past, I think we can try to understand what he was after. Some members said that Dr. Cheng was being playful and he was turning the flag upside down just for the hell of it. And there were members who said that he was being naughty. I don't think this excuse would hold any water. Well, like to say that Dr. Cheng is 33 years of age. He's no kid. He's a university lecturer. He's an activist. He led the protest against the individual visa scheme, and he had a lot of activism in the street. He said that China isn't part of China and it's not Chinese, and Hong Kong should build a nation. Many people are telling me that with a teacher like this, he would only be misguiding the students. With somebody like this becoming a legitimate member, would it be misguiding Hong Kong as well? As Dr. Cheng Chung-tai said that in the council, he would be moving a motion to segregate between Hong Kong and the mainland. And during his oath-taking process, he read out the oath, but he also talked about drafting the Constitution, and he is effectively advocating Hong Kong independence. And he did say that we should advocate independence of Hong Kong by turning the national and regional flags upside down. This is merely an expression of his political stance. I think if you compare this with what he said before, it would not be hard to comprehend why he acted the way he did. Now, I think for members to blindly condone Dr. Cheng's behavior is being unreasonable. As Mr. Holden Chow said, the debate today is like a mirror to show up the members for who they are, who are disrespectful for the country and the nation. It's not like other members said that this is opening a floodgate and we're ruining our dignity. As a matter of fact, this is a good opportune moment for us to right the wrong. Through this debate and through the voting process, we would be able to redefend the dignity of the Council. If someone is not minded to uphold the basic law and bear allegiance to the SAR, then one should not become a legitimate member. I hope that the PANDAM members should not blindly shelter Dr. Cheng Chung-tai, because if you do so, then you would be conniving with what he did, or you will be subscribing to his philosophy, although you don't know what his philosophy is. With these words, I object to Mr. Raymond Chan's motion.
Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Paul Chair, you have already moved your motion. Sorry, this is Mr. Ray Chan's motion. I have not spoken on this motion. Mr. Paul Chair. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Madam Deputy, I have paid close attention to 23 members, including Mr. Ray Chan's speeches. At this stage, I will only speak on this motion, and that there should be no further action to my original motion. I will try not to repeat what I have already said, but if I think I need to pick up on some points made by members at this stage, I hope, Madam Deputy, you will allow me to. Number one, do we have a better choice? I think Mr. Kenneth Leung and Mr. Horace Chung both made a very good point about this one. In fact, I think we are faced with a Hobson's choice. On the one hand, we should just let this taper off. And two, since there is no interim, more appropriate alternative, we cannot but resort to this motion. So there is a platform for a public debate here in the Council. So members of the public who are very concerned, who are indeed angry, will know how we react to this. And are we overreacting, for that matter? I don't know about you, Madam Deputy, but I have heard from many Kaifongs that they were angered by Sixtus Leung and Yau Wai Ching, and also angered by Dr. Chang Chung Tai's act. This goes to show that this is not just a puerile act. Well, actually, this did not originate from me. Some members assigned it to me, but this was not from me. Because some non-establishment members actually did this to come to the defense of Dr. Chang. And I am made to reflect deeply on our RoP, which might have to be amended. And just from that angle, we should have this debate, because there is a vacuum in our RoP, because there is no mechanism for us to tackle members' acts which are in violation of the RoP, because there is no midway solution. The non-establishment members said this is making a mountain out of a molehill, that this is nothing of any significance. Well, I'd like to quote from the protector of Dr. Chang in Civic Passion. He said that we have no courage whatsoever. Of course, this is Mr. Wong Yok Man, and he said we should resort to 49B. He said that we did not have the guts. He said you would only make oral reprimands, but no one dared to invoke 49B, he said. Madam Deputy, number 2. Whether we have taken too light a view on this matter. In fact, we allowed many things to just taper off, and this time around is different. This is a desecration of the national flag and regional flag. Even the pro-establishment camp overlooked the significance of the matter at the beginning, especially when this happened, when members should be discharging their duties during a council meeting, and when this was live broadcast on television. And we were trying to decide whether the oath-taking was effective or not effective, and in fact there was a debate on allegiance to the country. So this is not insignificant at all. And of course, with hindsight, the MPCSC interpreted the basic law, and Justice Thomas also told us their understanding of the provisions in the law, and now we understand that not abiding by our oath of office is nothing insignificant, and that by engaging in such acts, there will be a consequence. So we understand that there is a bottom line of the council that should not be easily overstepped. Recently, we know that Mr. Chris Patton said, so by the same token, national flags are not to be meddled with. Some people said this is just my act of showing loyalty. Some members did not mention names, but obviously they were targeting members like me. I like to say that some countries tolerate the desecration of national flags by their own nationals, like the Netherlands. But then they will not allow their nationals to publicly desecrate other national flags. So this is not a show of loyalty. This is basic respect. This is the common sense of councillors. You should not mess around with the national flag. If you view this through a colored lens, you should know that this is not just a demonstration of loyalty. This is not a question of the freedom of speech. If you would just spend a little time on reading the judgment of the CFA ruling on Ng Kong Shield's case, you will know that you have no common sense and you actually contravene the laws of Hong Kong. Madam Deputy, if Dr. Chang Chung Tai has the opportunity to review the incident, I suspect he wouldn't want to do it again. By listening to him yesterday, I would believe that even as a lecturer of university, he has not read the RoP carefully, or else he wouldn't have said that he would lose his seat if this motion is carried by 2/3 of the majority of members. Maybe he is busy with other matters, so he is not spending his time rightly on this matter. I hope he will not be intellectually dishonest since he is a university lecturer. Like what Mr. Eddie Chu said, he has not come clean on his motive. I dare him to talk about his rationale, like one of the defendants in the national flag desecration case. He did not dare to come forward and say why he did it. He should do better as a university lecturer. I wouldn't say more, but I think this is unacceptable. Madam Deputy, someone said we should wait for the court's judgment. We should resort to proper procedures like prosecution. But since we have Article 79, 6 and 7 of the BL, well, which are quite different, these are the two choices. We may not have to rely on 79.6 conviction and sentencing to imprisonment for 1 month. Still, we can trigger the procedure to censure the member. The two procedures are different. 79(6) is comparatively easy as long as there is a fact of conviction and imprisonment, like what happened to Mr. Chin Pui Chong. We did not have to refer this to an investigation committee. But since there is no trial, 79(7) is a safeguard. This is what we are doing. Without notice, a member can move a motion under RoP 49B 2A to set aside an original motion. And now we have this debate. And if the motion is lost, if there is an investigation committee, it has to follow strict procedures to investigate into the matter. And lastly, there will be another debate here, so the public can watch what we have done. And then there is a high threshold of 2/3 of members before this can be carried. So the entire procedure is fair and just, even if there is no court trial. And it is not that a member can be disqualified just because people don't like the color of your shirt. Just now, Mr. Alvin Young said that even a primary school student knows this does not flout the national flag law. Well, I believe I have more experience as a barrister and a solicitor than Mr. Alvin Yeung, and I don't think I'm a primary school student. And I don't agree that there is absolutely no offense, because the law includes this word etc., meaning that you don't necessarily have to burn, mutilate, scrawl on, defile, or trample on the national flag before you can be convicted. Of course, there is a high threshold if there is criminal prosecution, but it doesn't mean no prosecution can be brought. It's just that if there is the benefit of doubt, we may not want to bring prosecution. And then another member said, you put these flags on your desk, they are mock-ups, they do not comply with specifications. Well, I'd like to tell you that according to the law, a national flag or national emblem which is damaged, defiled, faded, or substandard must not be displayed or used. I'd like to tell you that this does not draw any criminal liability, and this is stated in para 32 of the judgment in the Ng Kong Siu case. Madam Deputy, including Mr. Alvin Yeung, and another member, sorry, I don't know who it is, quoted what I said in the Kam Nai Wai case. I'd like to thank those members for reading my speech in detail. I'm very proud of what I said, but times have changed. It is not that I have changed, but the facts are different. In the Kam case, there is a defendant but no plaintiff. The plaintiff refuses to give evidence, and the investigation is futile from the beginning. And Mr. Kam Nai Wai was engaged in some private act. It is totally different from what has happened this time around, and that is a member is discharging his duty in a council meeting which has been recorded on tape. And comparatively speaking, the investigation will be easier and the facts can be established more easily. And the members will know whether their behavior is up to the expectation of the public. And I'd like to mention in passing that actually Mr. Kam Nai Wai welcomed investigation. Now I remember the other member was Andrew Wan. He quoted what I said then in detail. I hope they understand that yes, as a lawyer, as a barrister, I have given very prudent consideration to these matters. I have read all the judgments again. I have read all the relevant speeches again. And what is more important, Madam Deputy, I was prosecuted because of what I did by the Bar Association. So I was very prudent in studying whether the procedures are appropriate. If you criticize what I'm doing as excessive, you must know what I have gone through. It was some painful experience. And any acts that relate to Article 79 of BL or RoP 49 should take place, I would always actively take part in these debates. Madam Deputy, this is absolutely not a show of loyalty or an action that is excessive. I'm trying to put the LegCo back on the right track. This is also our solemn declaration to our voters. Thank you.
Mr. Wilson Orr. Thank you, Madam Deputy. I speak to oppose to Mr. Ray Chan's motion. National flag is the symbol of a country, whether it's a festivity or in a game or during natural disaster. You will see a national flag because it always represents the people and the country. Every citizen has the duty to respect and to care about the national flag. and that applies to China and a lot of countries. In a lot of these countries, there are rules set down to reflect that. Back in the 1960s, there was such legislations in US, and later in Sweden, there was also a similar legislation. In New Zealand, at around the same time, there were legislations giving an actual status of the national flag to give it protection. Let's come back to Hong Kong. Under Annex 3 of the Basic Law, it states that the national flag of the PRC is incorporated, and in a lot of countries, it says, well, and it says that if the national flag is publicly defined, then it's also punishable. And under Cap 204 and 206, that is the National Flag and National Emblem Ordinance and the Regional Flag and Regional Emblem Ordinance, well, defacement of the national flag and emblem is an offense and is liable to a fine at level 5 and imprisonment for 3 years. What does it mean? It says that any act to defile the national flag is a criminal offense. And Dr. Chang Chung Tai is a teacher. He should know about this. And without the consent of the property owner, you mess with that person's property. This is simply not right. I'm sure that Dr. Chang is aware of that. He's been advised, and despite that, on 2 occasions, he turned the flags upside down. This only aggravates the situation. And I think that Dr. Chang has flouted the rule of procedure. And on top of that, he refused to leave when he was asked to leave the chamber by the president. This is childish and infantile. I'm sure Dr. Chang is aware of that. Your attitude towards a national shows the attitude towards your country. And I think the act of Dr. Chang shows that he has no concept of country, and he shows no care and love to his country. So this casts doubt to the oath he administered, that he did not mean it, because he says one thing, he said one thing and did another. And I'm sure people who are discerning will be able to tell. The LegCo is a solemn place, and is turned into a stage where farce take place. If you want to, you will storm to the front. If you don't want to leave, you simply refuse to. And you can see that a lot of people have distorted the facts. It has completely destroyed the solemnity of LegCo, and we have Leung and Yao talking about China, and then there is the flags being put upside down. Hong Kong used to be the Pearl of the Orient. We are known for our safety, but now we have riots, we have insults to our country, we have arson, and it gives the international arena a wrong impression. As you can see that we have a decreasing number of inbound visitors. What does it show? It shows with supporting figures that the number of inbound tour from China has dropped by 40 to 50%. Looking at Korea, Singapore, Japan, they have become the first choice over Hong Kong. So this act of humiliating your country shows that there is the relations between Hong Kong and China and mainland China has become more tense, and it gives the impression that Hong Kong is in a mess. The act of Dr. Chang Chung Tai is a bad example. It has angered a lot of people. And it started with what Ms. Yao and Mr. Leung did. And it's aggravated by Dr. Cheng's behavior. Of course, we have to act swiftly to stop such behavior. For despicable people like that, we have to censure them. This will set an example to a youngster. If we do not deal with this properly, it will send the wrong message to our youngsters. I strongly condemn the act of Dr. Cheng Chung-tai. He humiliates the country and Hong Kong people. And lots of people told us that we have to seriously deal with it. Yesterday, it was the commemoration day of the Nanjing massacre. Chinese people will not forget about that. It was humiliation inflicted by Japan. People will feel very infuriated because of that. Citizens should be law-abiding, more so for legislators. They should not just abide by the law. They should send the message that people should abide by the law. But there are always a handful of people who have a hidden agenda. They emphasize the two systems. They oppose to one country. They belittle one country. They flout the basic law. And we have to nip the independence of Hong Kong in the bud. And we have to restore rationality to our society. This is what we should do to put Hong Kong back on the right track. I support Mr. Paul TSE's motion and I oppose to Mr. Ray Chan's motion. I so submit.
Mr. Stephen Ho. President, thank you. I think I must heap praise on Mr. Wilson Orr because he's really righteous enough to say that it is important to observe the law. But here in this council, a lot of people are taking advantage of the legal loopholes and they are playing games here in this council. We saw Dr. Cheng Chung-tai turning the flags upside down and he concocted all these weird excuses, and the Pan-Dam members try to offer excuses for him by saying that it was being playful. Mr. Eddie Chu cited the court case in which someone defaced the national flag, and he didn't say that this bloke bore legal consequences and was found guilty. I think it is only right that this kind of freedom should be curbed, because this kind of curbing of the freedom would be a reasonable kind of curbing of freedom of speech. I don't think members should be citing this Lee case to defend as a defense for Dr. Cheng Chung-tai. There is no excuse whatsoever. Second, some members, I think it was Mr. Cheng, who said once that he didn't say that. In fact, he said basically that because of his act, he was chucked out of the chamber by the president. He was already punished. But that left me scratching my head. Not so long ago, members said that a consultant misused the confidential information for personal use, and the consultant was banned for 3 months, and they said that this is non-punishment, and they're telling us that Dr. Cheng Chung-tai has already been punished. I think they are being liberal with themselves or being strict with others. we all understand, we all say that we have to be fair, and I think we have to exercise self-restraint as councillors here. We have to be stricter with ourselves. We have to be stricter with ourselves than others. This is my motto, and I'm not sure about others. I'm just saying this for members' interest. Now, if you call this being expelled from the chamber a kind of punishment, it is really ludicrous. I think people condone the members too much, and this is contributing to the disorder in this council. I think like Mr. Paul TSE and other my predecessors said that we have to right the wrong here, and we have to do what is deemed to be correct. And you may say that is it an expression of loyalty by saying this. Now, what's wrong with expressing my loyalty as someone with Chinese blood inside me? Mr. Pt3 made and the other point that he didn't understand what motivated Dr. Cheng to turn the flags upside down. I find this wholly laughable. Everybody knows what he was doing. He wasn't merely displeased with the DAB members. Dr. N. Cheung halted him once and he did it all over again. Everybody understands what he did, why don't you? So in a word, he pretended not to know about it, because by saying that he knew the motive, then he would find it difficult to leap to Dr. Cheng's defense. A lot of non-establishment members are resorting to this kind of logic, and they're hiding behind this shield. I don't think this is a shield at all. I think this is more like a fake leaf, if you like, and this is laughable. Mr. Ben Chen, you might wish to share with us your views on this issue. Seriously, earlier, the President-elect Donald Trump made a speech that if China didn't fix the trade mechanism, then he would be prepared to adjust the One China policy. And then in the evening, the Foreign Office came out and retorted this and said that this is non-negotiable. I think this is the case here. Dr. Cheng Chung-tai insulted the nation, and there were earlier arguments, earlier advocate for independence of Hong Kong, and this is non-negotiable. Why do we have to have this motion? Why is it that there are so many pro-establishment members are speaking on this subject, and they are labeling us for expressing or showing loyalty? You're not Chinese, I am. And if you're not accountable to your ancestors, I am. But I find it difficult to face my mother. My mother told me off over dinner, and she asked me why I said so little. I told her that we have to follow the procedure, and you have to have the right platform, you have to have the right timing. I'm grateful to Mr. Paul TSE for letting me have this platform to express our indignation about what happened. Mr. Raymond Chan, we are debating on your motion, but I very much hope that you would understand that you should not mix up all the different logics. Mr. Cheng Chung-tai said yesterday that if the pro-establishment members are in support of Mr. Paul TSE's motion and censure him, then members will be supporting this system. I don't think you should be kidnapped by him. You should not be held hostage by him. This kind of insulting act cannot be mixed up with your values. If you bundle them together, then you'll be muddling your roles. Yesterday I read a book, and I also heard one of my predecessors talk about Hamas and they fired missiles at the Hamas, and they fired the cannons at the Hamas at the places where the residents are living downstairs. Mr. Stephen Ho, we'll come back to the subject. Sorry. You've digressed from the subject. Sorry, President, I am talking about Mr. Raymond Chan's motion. Well, we are debating Mr. Raymond Chan's motion, not Raymond Chan. Well, I think I have to talk about his motive. I talked about the missile fired at the Hamas, that they are firing at the second floor where the Hamas is, where the residents are living downstairs. It was Cheng Chung-tai who was firing the missiles, and the pro-establishment members are staying downstairs. And how can you not hit the pro-establishment members? I think you have to clear up the logic. With these words, I object to Mr. Raymond Chan's motion and support Mr. Paul TSE's motion.
The Honourable Ben Chan. Thank you, President. Just now, Mr. Stephen Ho said that we should be loyal and pledge allegiance. In fact, every member has taken the oath to bear allegiance to the PRC and the SAR. Every member here, Mr. Ray Chan, as you know, including yourself, we have sworn to bear allegiance to the country. If anyone desecrates the national flag and regional flag, we should reprimand them most severely. This is what we should do. I don't know why when Mr. Paul TSE moves a motion of censure, Mr. Ray Chan, why do you come to the defense of Dr. Chang? I find that mind-boggling. In this council chamber, if there is misbehavior and we don't stop it, it will become something customary. It's just like adding to the oath. People have been adding to the oath of office and they were allowed to do so. And therefore, more members are doing it. And it can become a kind of convention. And if this time around people are not allowed to do it, people say you have tightened up the rules. So this time around we must reprimand the desecration of national flag and regional flag. This is a very serious issue. Mr. Ray Chan, why do you want to object to it? And secondly, crazy or frantic filibustering. We tried to be tolerant, but then it has become a common practice, and so people succeeded in filibustering, and therefore we should tackle misbehavior in a timely manner and move motions. That is why I think Paul TSE has done the right thing. And Dr. Chang said, as quoted by Mr. Stephen Ho, that if the non-establishment camp or the pan-democrats, if you help the pro-establishment camp to do something to me, then you are not one of us and you are giving a candle to the devil. I think his prophecy has come true, and Ray Chan has jumped to his defense. Well, okay, I will defend you by staging another motion. And so the entire non-establishment camp are roped in. But this is actually a neutral matter. It is about desecration of the national flag and regional flag. Why can't we rectify the wrong? Why do you want to defend him? In the last term, Mr. Wong Yok Man was leading the entire camp by the nose, and the pan-democrats became very passive. And the same goes for this incident. Therefore, I hope either you leave the chamber when we take a vote, or you should object to Mr. Ray Chan's motion. By so doing, you can make sure that you are sincere in bearing allegiance when you took the oath. Somebody criticized Mr. Paul TSE for doing political censorship by moving this motion. And a member was unhappy with Mr. Andrew Leung's decision. But we must remember, we did take the oath to swear allegiance to the country. And somebody said that Mr. Paul Chair was deliberately digressing from the incident, and he was trying to whip up conflicts between the two camps and also, in fact, within the pro-establishment camp. Well, I would say that this is the most puerile of puerile acts. I do believe that when the public of Hong Kong and all the people in China and the pro-establishment camp respect the national flag and regional flag, so Dr. Chang should be severely reprimanded and censured because he inverted the national flag and regional flag. Why not? Mr. Ray Chan started his speech by saying that we abandoned the national flag on the desk and we walked out. Well, I did not say I was abandoning it. I would still want to have it back. And Mr. Edward Lau immediately showed you the flags that we used. They are still here. We respect them. Does it mean whatever we put on the desk is abandoned? Well, Mr. Ray Chan, you must remember whatever you put on your desk is something abandoned by you. If you are thrown out of the chamber, members, listen now. Whatever is left on the desk is abandoned and disowned by Mr. Ray Chan. I think you are distorting the matter, Mr. Chan. You are standing facts on their head. You are just doing this for conveniencing yourself in this debate. Mr. Eddie Chu said that this is tantamount to suppressing freedom of speech, and he said members are elected by voters. And I should say members are elected according to the laws, and they should act according to the law and conventions and the RoP when they are in the chamber. If someone flouts the RoP, we should do something about it. Why can't we move a motion to deal with such behavior? I think you have distorted the entire logic. The voters have elected their members to represent them, but the mandate is not for insulting the country in this chamber. It is not possible for you to desecrate the national flag and regional flag. This is not about the freedom of speech. Everyone who sees the flag will know that it is a national flag or a regional flag. So you can't dismiss this as suppression of freedom of speech. This is not aligned with reality. We hope we can put an end to such behavior in a timely manner, because I'm afraid that this will set a precedent. The national flag and regional flag are protected by law, and they are a symbol of our national identity. Hong Kong is part of China. We should respect the flags, and this has nothing to do with our political stance. Some people say this is a demonstration of loyalty, but we should have the same stance. You and I have sworn allegiance. You can reply by telling me whether you don't bear allegiance to the Hong Kong SAR and uphold the basic law. Now, if someone desecrates the object of your allegiance, why can't we reprimand him? Well, can we dismiss the inversion of the national flag as a puerile act? It has trampled upon the dignity of the country and Hong Kong. It is an illegal act, and you just cannot dismiss it as a puerile act. If you do, I think it is an insult. It is not a defense, and also the mandate of voters cannot be a defense. I hope we can say this to the whole wide world. The Chinese national flag cannot be desecrated at will. Yesterday, there was this news report that in an international competition, only the Chinese national flag was missing from the venue, and Chinese participants asked why there was no Chinese flag, and it was said that the pole was not in order and the Chinese flag will fly the next day. And the Chinese flag did not fly the next day, and in the end, the entire Chinese team left. This is what we call dignity. If someone desecrates the national flag in our country, we should strongly censure it. And we should subject this person to a legal sanction. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Ray Chan, would you like to reply? Thank you, President. And I also thank altogether 26 members who have spoken in relation to the motion I moved. Out of them, 18 of them are loyalists. And I would like to reply to a lot of them, but I only have 15 minutes. I'm afraid I don't have time to reply to every one of them. For those who have spoken closer to now, I will reply. Mr. Ben Chan said that, well, is it the case that if you leave something on the desk, you have abandoned it? No, that is not the case. But at that time, a member asked for a head count to try to trigger an abortion of the meeting. So they decide not to come back to the meeting. And of course, if you decide not to come back, then you will take your belongings with you. Mr. Stephen Ho said, well, one of his logic is that some members said that on that day the president has already ruled and sanctioned him that he should not reoffend. I don't agree with that. And he said in Wang Chao incident, the consultant used data of the government, and there was a suspension of 3 months. And we said that it was a slap on the wrist. Yes, if Mr. Stephen Ho trigger PNP, I will definitely support it to see if it is indeed too light a penalty. I wish you will clarify one thing. Mr. Paul TSE motion is made under Rule49B bracket 1A to censure Dr. Cheng Chung-tai at the council meeting of what happened on the 19th of October, for the matter to be referred to an investigation committee with a possible consequence of him being disqualified. I'm not here to comment with you whether what Dr. Chang did was right or not. On that day, he left his seat to mess with what was left on the desk of DAB members. That itself is a fact. I'm not here to argue with you. What is arguable is whether Dr. Cheng Chung-tai's behavior constitute what is censurable under 49B bracket 1A. That's why I moved the motion under Rule 49 bracket 2A to not refer the matter. What I want to say is that, well, Ms. Claudia Mo said that you're using a machine gun to shoot at a bee. That's a metaphor. And I heard from Horace Zheng and Paul TSE and a lot of loyalists, they have made the same, they're fallen into the same fallacy, that this indeed is a machine gun, but we have no other way. And they thought that a slap on the wrist could deal with it. But there was no alternative but available to them other than a machine gun. And if you don't use a machine gun, then you have just left it undealt with. But are there other alternatives? Say, for example, Dr. Cheng Chung-tai's administering of the oath was a subject of a judicial review proceeding. And members of the public can, at any time, apply to the court saying that what he did afterwards is in violation of the administering of the oath, and someone said that used what happened in South Korea, the Prime Minister, to liken it to what Dr. Cheng Chung-tai said, and I think it is out of proportional. It is better to use that metaphor to compare it with UGL of C.Y. Leung. And if you don't support PNP to investigate into UGL, then it is a mistake. I'm not here to talk about the national flag. I said that it is a prop, a mock-up, because I want to maintain neutral. If it is a national flag, then the legislator who displayed that might have broken the law. Under Section 4 of National Flag and National Emblem Ordinance, it said that a national flag or a national emblem which is damaged, defiled, faded, or substandard must not be displayed or used. I thank Mr. Paul TSE for mentioning this. He said that there is no criminal consequence. It's not a contravention of the law. Just now, Mr. Stephen Ho said that you have to abide by the law. Is it the case that if it carries no criminal consequence, then you don't have to abide by it? And what Dr. Cheng Chung-tai said carried no legal consequence, no criminal consequence, or not yet at least. And you said that the mechanism can be triggered under Article 79(7) to refer the matter to the investigation committee. Well, what might happen is that pro-establishment members display substandard national flag, which is in violation of Section 4 of the National Flag and National Emblem Ordinance. Yes, it carries no criminal consequence, but it's a contravention of the law, and we can start the proceedings parallel to court proceedings. And under Rule 49B bracket 1A, the matter can be referred to an investigation committee, as we know that it is subject to division. As matters stand, if the motion is moved by the Pan-Democrats, it will not be carried in the functional constituency, and if it is put forward by loyalists, then it won't be carried amongst the geographical constituencies. However, we can still try to make it happen to have the matter referred to the investigation committee. Then how many of such committees will there be? Martin Liu said that in our debate we have circumvented the fact that it was misconduct. And under Article 79 bracket 7, misconduct may result in a member being censured. But if we go to 45 bracket 2 of the RoP, and if there is a gross misconduct of a member, then the president or chairman of the committee may order the member to leave the meeting and not participate in that meeting anymore. I read that out because every week a member may commit the same mistake. That is gross misconduct, because you will be expelled and then you come back next week. So if you are expelled, then you can, by your logic, trigger this mechanism. And under RoP 49B bracket 1A, take you to Article 79, paragraph 7, and the same procedure will start, and this will never end. Members, if you support that the matter should be referred to the investigation committee, but how many of you know what the committee does? Say, for example, what Ms. Starry Lee said, that the investigation into what happened on the 19th of October. But how do you carry the investigation? I'm sure the hearing will be completed in no time. You just watch the video clip and ask Dr. Cheng Chung-tai to come to reply. I think that's it. Unless you ask the loyalists to display the flags and measure them to see if they conform to the specification. Mr. Porter, in his Schedule 1, said that the loyalists display the mock-ups of the national flags of the PRC and the regional flag of the Hong Kong SAR to highlight the solemnity and pledge of taking oath to uphold the basic law and swear allegiance to the Hong Kong SAR of the PRC. But I don't see that at all. On the 19th of October, you did not want Ms. Yao and Mr. Leung to administer the oath again. And if you don't want that to happen, then how come this is to highlight what I've said? And some member said that that was an act to humiliate China. Well, say for example, if I just put a cup here and set it in front of me, perhaps to that person, it carries no meaning. If you really respect the national flag and the regional flag, then you will have a proper stand instead of just putting the flag in a cup. I do think that itself is disrespectful. I just call it a mock-up or a prop of a for display, because that is better for everyone. Otherwise, I will take you to Section 4 and Section 7 of the ordinance, and that will be meaningless. And I would like to reply to a very serious point raised by Ms. An Chang. She talked about harboring, conniving, condoning people who share your same view. I want to make it clear to Ms. An Chang, it's absolutely not because the case that we share the same idea that I do what I did today. Dr. Cheung Chung Tai and Civic Passion will not treat myself or People Power as someone who follows the same path. And I think they always attack us just as much as they attack the DAB. If you say that I harbor and connive Dr. Cheung Chung Tai is wrong. And as Junius Ho said that perhaps because I have a big heart that I moved this motion. I did not understand. And Ms. An Chang said that is because you like men. No, that's absolutely not the case. I moved this motion is because it is about the procedure of the LegCo, whether we should or should not proceed in this way. Mr. Paul TSE said that he could not say for sure whether what Dr. Chang did was a contravention of the law. However, Ms. An Chang all of a sudden turned herself into a judge and said that, well, whether you are an emperor or not, you have to abide by the law. I think you have to direct that at C.Y. Leung and not Dr. Cheung Chung Tai. And some people said that, well, perhaps the voters of Dr. Cheung Chung Tai might not be happy with him. I agree. Yes, I've heard that because what he did after he's been elected is child's play compared to what he pledged to do before the election. And I'm not going to comment to whether it's respectful or not. And yes, if it was its intention to try to humiliate or smear the loyalists, it's not for you to stage a show using 49B bracket 1A. You may disagree, you may not accept, you may find that he is wrong and it should not be condoned, should not be connived, and it should not be encouraged. But invoking this rule is not right. It's like using machine gun to shoot at a bee. If that is the case, then we will be very busy. And if the president thinks that someone's committed misconduct, then it should be expelled. But there are a lot of people who have done a lot of things that we think is not appropriate. And on Monday, Ms. An Chang was bickering with Ms. Helena Wong for 2 minutes. I find that quite disrespectful. Then should I trigger the RoP to ask for the matter to be referred to the investigation committee to see if there was misconduct involved, so that it will be put to a vote to decide whether a legislator is to be disqualified. And you must realize that it is very difficult to disqualify a member. And I want to go back to the point made by Ms. Ann Chang. She said that the national flag showed a culture of several thousands of years, and is immediately attacked because it is the national flag of the PRC. Where does the thousands of years of civilization come from? You may not agree that it is making a mountain out of a molehill, because that is rather subjective. But if you think that amounts to misconduct, and then you elevate it to this level and use a machine gun to deal with such a trifling matter, to refer the matter to the investigation committee for members to vote on and hopefully get 2/3, then we always find a chance to have this to trigger the same thing. And it will be very difficult to put the LegCo back on the right track. And I hope members will support my motion. That is, to take, and not to take further action in relation to Mr. Paul TSE's motion.
Before I put the question to you, I'd just like to remind members that under Rule 49B2A of the Rules of Procedure, if Mr. Raymond Chan's motion is passed, then we will not be able to take an action regarding Mr. Paul TSE's motion. If this is voted down, then the motion is referred to the investigation committee. And I'll propose the question to you, and that is that the motion moved by Mr. Raymond Chan under RoP 49B2A be passed with those in favor. Mr. Gary Chen claims the division. The bell will go for 5 minutes.
開始表決。
Will members please proceed to vote?
請各位核
Please check your votes. If there are no questions, voting now ends. I display the results. Functional constituency, 32 present, 11 for, 20 against. Geographical constituencies, 28 for, 16 for, 12 against. I think the question is not agreed by a majority of each of the two groups members who are present. I declare the motion negatived. In accordance with Rule 49B(2)(a) of the Rules of Procedure, the debate is now adjourned, and the matter stated in Mr. Paul TSE's motion is referred to an investigation committee. I now suspend the meeting and resume at 9 tomorrow.